My name's Dan. I'm an alcoholic.
Amen.
Thank you for the intro. I was grateful to be here tonight. Grateful to be back at Primary Purpose, a place that Teresa and I just loved is being in this part of the state during the really 3.5 years we lived here. Came down in 15 and left in 18, and it was a tough transition back to cold, dark Northeast Ohio. But I'll get into some info and statistics real quick. My sobriety date's July 12th, 2014. I have a home group. My home group is Open Arms Wednesday. It's a lead meeting. It's in Macedonia, Ohio. So we are situated kind of in between Akron, which is big AA area, Akron, Ohio, and then Cleveland, right in between there. And I serve in a role there, on a responsibility for a role there within the group, and I sponsor one guy. Got a free agent right now, so I'm going into the transfer portal to look for someone else. But super grateful to be here. I owe a lot of the foundation of my recovery to this group, to the people in this room, to good sponsorship. And I always thought with this experience I had when I was here coming into AA was a spiritual experience, but the first living big book I ever saw was really this home group. Was really people that were out going to detox and going into the corrections and living out all the stuff that was in black and white. I read the book Drunk, as Steve said, which I don't recommend because it's not going to work out too well, but the first time I'd actually seen someone live this stuff out was when I joined this home group, and it was an eye-opener to me. It was a totally different world when I started seeing people live by all the principles that were laid down in the 12 steps and the first 164 pages of Alcoholics Anonymous. So with that, I'll get drunk pretty quick and hopefully talk more about recovery. I am the oldest of 3 kids. I grew up in a family where we had everything we needed and most of what we wanted. My brother was the middle child, and then our baby sister is the youngest. My brother qualifies and is in the program as well. He doesn't mind me saying that because he would tell you that himself. And he's had a miracle, really, from where his life was because of Alcoholics Anonymous in his life as well. But I was a shy kid. Levi's jeans defined me as husky, like I was a husky child. So I just kind of rolled around and was deathly afraid to talk to anybody. Like just the feelings that the book describes. Not feeling like I fit in, not feeling like I was socially up to par with other people. And that just played itself out mainly through elementary and into high school until I found alcohol. So I didn't have a gradual progression at the early stages of my drinking. I was a blackout drinker from the start. Obviously, early on, it was more weekend warrior stuff where I'm 16 years old. I'm relying on older friends' siblings to get me alcohol and work all those situations out that I did to get what I needed. But I was not a daily drinker by any means in high school. But as soon as I hit 16 years old, I was drinking Wild Irish Rose in the high school stairwell. And I loved it. I loved everything it did for me because it took all that just anxiety I had about not feeling like I fit in, being shy. I felt like I could actually talk to people, like look them in the eye. As crazy as that sounds, I struggled to do that. And that's what it did for me. I drank because of the effect, and I drank until I blacked out. There was not a middle ground. I was not a social drinker. I was not a social drinker graduating into a blackout drinker. I was a blackout drinker. And when I did drink, as heart-wrenching as it may have been from the consequences of how dumb I was from the night before, I don't want to do it again. That's, kind of that phenomenon that goes on in the alcoholic's mind where, like, hey, this just makes sense to do this again, which I don't know why, normal people don't think that way, but I do. And that's the other gift of this program. Coming in, it gives you a very honest sense of self-awareness. So, like, I know I'm nuts. Like, coming into AA, it's like it strips you down to where I know that my thinking was absolutely insane for a very long part of my life. And now I know that, so I'm without excuse because I know where the solution is. It's in these rooms and it's with these people here. But in high school, I put my parents through a lot of grief. My crowning achievement in high school was I was at a Catholic private high school. They bussed all of us on these buses out to a campground to go have a religious retreat. And a couple of my friends got together. We're like, hey, let's meet at McDonald's before the retreat and let's drink as much as possible before we go to the religious retreat, right? So we get, I don't even know, Continental Congress, I don't know what the vodka was, and all this other stuff. And so we get there, I'm being belligerent on the bus ride. It's amazing I even made it to the campground with people just telling me to shut up and sit in the back. And they finally get everybody into this big, kind of like a fellowship hall. It's a huge auditorium. And they've got pews laid out. It's kind of like a church. And up front, there is I guess it's a priest. In the Catholic world, it's a priest or a deacon or something. And myself and another friend are in the bathroom. And I'm looking at him, and I'm seeing three of him, like, as this is happening. I'm like, man, I can't walk out there. He goes, I'm hammered. I'm like, I know you are. And we walk out. And they're starting the service. I don't know if they're doing some prayer or what happened, but I literally, in a fog, waltzed up to the front of the entire junior class in my high school and face planted in front of the priest. And then a couple teachers come and drag me out. And that was the end of my, religious, I guess I had a spiritual experience in a different manner that day. And my phone call to the parents, I'm locked in the principal's closet. They're feeding me crackers and water, and that was not a fun phone call. My mom picked me up, and they sent me to I guess it was alcohol education at the time that I had to go do if I wanted to stay enrolled in the school. And my dad had to go with me, and at the end of it, they did this assessment, and they're like, hey, you may have a problem drinking, with the volume you're drinking, with what we've pegged you as someone that this could be an issue. But at 17 years old, I'm like, my dad even said, he's like, this isn't an issue. And I didn't think I had a problem. I thought everyone just wanted to party like I did, So I didn't take that. It was my first warning sign, I guess, going into what would be life, where I just completely missed things God was throwing at me at that point in my life. And I will say this, just because it's part of my story, it's not the reason I'm an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic because I love to drink. I'm selfish, self-centered. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, regardless of what you have to say about it. My dad drank heavily, though, when we were growing up. And it influenced the culture in our home, the dynamic in our home. It was obvious that when my dad came home drunk, mom and him weren't on the same page, and the mood shifted, like in the house between the siblings and my parents. So, again, that doesn't have anything to do with my alcoholism, but it did have some influence on me, I guess, just because I knew that from a young age that things were different when Dad was drinking, But, again, didn't take a cue on that. That was right over my head. So getting on into rest of high school, I get through that. They put me on a performance plan. I get my stuff together just enough to turn my grades around my senior year and drink like I want to, but stay off the radar at school a little more. So I'm drinking on the weekends, going to high school football games, the usual stuff. When I got into college, nothing much changed. I wanted to go away. My parents were like, you are not going anywhere because you can't even function as in life, let alone in a different zip code. So I went to Kent State University, which is literally right next door to a little town I grew up in Ohio, and commuted, and actually got good grades. My volume of drinking went up during that time, but when I applied myself, I actually could hold my own for a little bit. It's amazing what I could have done if I actually cared, through most of the other things in my life. But got through college, and then basically got into, I was in a relationship with what would soon to be my ex-wife. I didn't know that at the time, but we were in a bad relationship, man. We had a high school relationship, is the best way to describe it. and I don't know if anyone can relate, but it's like we were both, the toxicity of our relationship was so much that we were so sick we just kept coming back to each other because we were comfortable and that's all we knew. So we were dating, I got in my first job, and long story short, we decided to get married. I got married at 24, completely not looking at like the big picture. Like, am I ready to understand what this is? Like, do I know what it takes to be a husband? Are we having conversations about life? Like, no, we were in a bad relationship, and unfortunately we both made the decision that because we were stuck in neutral, the next best thing to do was force drive and go into getting married, and that's what we did. And that didn't work out too well. There's not enough time to go into all that tonight, but I drank my way into that marriage and drank my way out. And what I can say about what happened in between there was just, we're never honest. Neither of us were ever honest about anything. I'm not going to diagnose my ex-wife because I can't do that. I will tell you we partied a lot together, and then she partied a lot on her own, and I would separately as well. So we didn't really have any firm foundation in anything, other than we had a house, we had a couple cars, we had jobs. But if you came into our house, it was a house of cards. Like, it was just waiting to explode. And throughout that whole time, it was kind of the start of where the consequences in real life from my drinking started to spiral. You know, and actually desperation is a gift for me, for someone like me, and that's what I needed. I didn't realize that at the time. You had told me at the time getting divorced was, part of my story. I would have been like, this is nuts, because this is a bad thing. But looking back on it, it was a severe consequence for me making a dumb decision, us making a dumb decision, and not being adults about it. But anyway, after that, we had to sell our house. And we built a house. We sold it for a pretty big loss. And financially, I'm bankrupt. I'm running up credit card debt. And I'm like, hey, I'm 28 years old. I need to have a bachelor party for 2 years. That's what I need to do. You know, I need to, everything that's going on in my life is everybody else's fault. It's a bad series of unfortunate events that happened to me, right? Like, I'm not responsible for any of it. And I started to have a bachelor party for 2 years straight. I moved into a big retail and shopping center area that has apartments above it, and I just had a bunch of friends that I worked with, and we would go out all the time. And I did this, and I thought it was great for a little bit. You know, for a while, I'm like, I don't have to report back home. I can drink how I want to at my place. I can go out and do what I want. There's some bars right below me, so I don't have to drive anywhere. It's like the alcoholic's dream. And this is the second time I've actually moved above a bunch of bars. I did that when I first got out of college. I did the same thing, and I thought that was great too. But nothing in real life, at 28 years old has ever hit me. If you asked me what my goals were, what's your vision, what do you want to be doing in 10 years, I would have stared at you blankly and just like put a glass in front of you, because that's what I wanted to be doing. Like, I had absolutely no ambition to do anything. I was not a very good employee. Fortunately, I was holding down a decent job, but the way I viewed work fueled my addiction. So if I didn't have a job, I can't afford to go drink. So I did view work, although I was a bad employee, and most days I was sitting at my desk breathing, and that was it, just turning oxygen into carbon dioxide at my desk. Like, I viewed work as something I needed to hold on to, because if I had lost my job, I got to go to another job, but I need to be able to drink, right? So kept my job somehow through all of that whole time frame. And the longer this went, the more miserable I got. The volume I was able to drink started to increase. I was at one point, nothing was off limits. I mean, I drank a lot of craft beer, but towards the end I was drinking a lot of straight vodka, because I'm just like, I need to drop the hammer. I need to get right down to the point. There's no reason to wait around all night to do this. So, but that's what I was drinking towards the end. And a lot of things happened that led me into these rooms. A lot of things happened. So obviously my wife's a big part of that. My brother's story is a part of that. And I'll tell you this. I'll backtrack real quick. One drunk log story. One night I was so blacked out I was driving down 71. 71 is kind of like US 1 up in Ohio, so it goes north and south. And I'm driving down 71 in a blackout. And I knew, before I even got in the car, I knew I shouldn't have been in the car. And I woke up on the side of the road to 3 police cruisers all around me. And I'm like, man, this is it. So I honestly don't remember if I had pulled the car over to the side of the road, because subconsciously I knew I shouldn't be driving, or if they pulled me, most likely that's what happened. But praise God that they pulled me over, because I could have killed myself or somebody else on the road that night. But I am very foggy as to what actually happened, other than I rode shotgun with the tow truck driver with my car in tow back to my house. And the next morning I woke up with a receipt for a tow truck slip, like that I owed the tow truck driver. That was it. And I can't even tell you what exactly happened. I called my father the same day, because my dad's got some legal history, and I asked him, hey, did I get, driving under the influence last night? Like, shouldn't I be in jail? And he's like, well, where are you? I'm like, I'm at home. He's like, where's your car? He's like, I'm like, it's in the driveway. And I'm like, I got a slip for a tow truck. And he's like, no. He goes, someone is looking out for you, because that's not normal. Like, that is not what should have happened last night. That you should have been somewhere else calling me to bail you out of jail. And that type of stuff, though, there's so many of those stories I can't get into them, but that's just how I drank. I mean, just with no reflection on reality and the consequences from circumstances and situations I had put myself in. I shouldn't have been behind the wheel of the car, but I was. So flash forwarding, my brother actually got a DUI in Portage County up in Ohio, and he went to jail, and someone brought a meeting into jail, brought an AA meeting. Some home group that was local to that area brought an AA meeting into the jail. My brother got out of jail. He gave me that big book. They gave him a big book in jail. He gave it to me. And I had a resentment against him for that, because I was like, you just got out of jail. You need the big book. I don't need the big book. But I wanted that book because I was curious as to what was in it. I had absolutely no clue what was in that book. And at this time, I was miserable. I was not. I hadn't surrendered that my life was unmanageable, but I was powerless over alcohol. And subconsciously, I wouldn't have told you that straight to your face, but I knew it. I knew it here. But I didn't accept that my life was unmanageable. So I have this big book, and Teresa and I are in about, coming in between 10 months to a year of dating, and I'm still drinking throughout this process. I'm blacking out at 4th of July events. I am just always the person that needs to be babysat at the end of the night. And it's becoming a problem with us, no doubt. But it's the same behavior I've exemplified since 16 years old. Like, I'm just, 16-year-old, 30-year-old man in bigger huskies this time. But it's becoming more annoying. And so that's becoming a problem, a strain in our relationship. My brother gave me that book. And then at some point in between, leading up to what would be the summer of 2014, which I didn't know would be my sobriety date, I started Googling on the internet, am I insane? Am I an alcoholic? Am I addicted to alcohol? Am I this, that, and the other? Like, I am looking for a educational definition of what the alcoholic is and an educational solution for what the alcoholic is, right? Didn't like anything I looked up, of course. I'm still drinking during this. So then I did go see, I don't know if I saw a priest. I saw somebody in the clergy. Visited somebody at that time. It was right around that same time. And looking for a spiritual solution to it. Like, what's the definition of someone who's under bondage from addiction, right? Like, give me the King James version of what's going on around here. And I didn't like that answer either. I was like, damn, I can't do that. So, but I'm searching, right? I'm searching on the internet. I'm asking clergy about stuff. I've got this big book. So I don't think I ever told Teresa this, but I did sit around. I sat around my apartment. I started reading that big book drunk. So I would read that book my brother gave me. And I read the first 164 pages. And I'd drink, and I'd have a bottle of vodka right here next to me. and I'd read, I'm like, this stuff's great, words are flying off the page, like people are getting saved, this is great. And then I read all the personal stories in the back of that book, like all of them. I don't know how many there are. There's a million of them. Back in the, 3/4 of the book is personal stories. The 164 is just like the first sliver of what we do in our program of recovery. And I was reading all those personal stories. They really bothered me. They bothered me for the main reason was this. I'm like, man, these people they all started and ended the same way. I was drinking too much. Here's the consequences from my drinking. I found Alcoholics Anonymous and got sober. Second story. A little different version. Could be, female, male, doesn't matter. Drinking too much. Here's the consequences. Found Alcoholics Anonymous, got sober. I'm like, damn, all these people are getting sober, going to Alcoholics Anonymous. So they're either full of it or it's real. Like, they're either all lying in the back of the big book or this thing actually is legit, So that bothered me, though. It really bothered me because if it was true, then I didn't have an excuse anymore. Like, all of a sudden, I may have a solution to arrest my active alcoholism. And I had to admit that. So I was wrestling with this kind of internally. Real quick, I'd grown up in, I think I told you, a Catholic family. So we had gone to a church. In the Catholic world, it's a mass. My dad was very religious about that growing up, so I grew up around that atmosphere. There was not, just with my experience, there was not a lot of talk or dialogue about having a personal relationship with God. There was that was just not my experience with it. So I grew up with some understanding of what the church, I guess, world was like, but I did not have any idea what it meant to surrender to God and let Him have control of my life and power over in my life. Like, that was just wasn't a thing. So I'm reading this big book drunk, and I'm getting miserable. Leading up to what would be my sobriety date, I cleared out my apartment. I'm like, man, I got to try and do this cold turkey and just get alcohol out of here. Like, physically get it out of here, because I can't do it. And removed all the stuff from my apartment, and that did not arrest what was going on in my head. Like the guilt, shame, and remorse from all the stuff I'd done, the people I had hurt, didn't stop mentally. Like, physically, I wasn't putting anything in me, but mentally, I was still going insane. And about a week into this is when my wife, not my wife at the time, but we were dating, and Teresa said, hey, have you ever thought about going to AA? And I had never thought. I'm reading this book drunk by Alcoholics Anonymous. I hadn't thought about going to a meeting. And not the sharpest tool, as you know. And that's all it took to get me to a meeting, because I was desperate. Like, the best way to describe my situation at that point was, I didn't know if AA worked, but I didn't know if I had any other options, because everything I was doing wasn't working. So I came in this door of an AA meeting like, hey, this has to be better than what I'm doing, because what I'm doing is not working. So if it doesn't work, I can go back to doing what I'm doing, and it's going to either end in me just drinking all the time, me doing something stupid, ending up in jail, or I can go to AA. And I don't know what that door looks like. So I went to it was a men's discussion. It was a Tuesday night. It was called Sober Friends up in Cleveland, Ohio. Never forget it. It's an old VFW hall. Smelled like burnt coffee. There's a guy named Ted standing at the front door. It's like vividly, I can remember this. One of those old West Bend coffee burners, like we have here. And he's smiling. He gives me a cup of coffee as I walk in. I'm like, what is this guy so happy about? Like, he can't be happy being here. He's going to AA meetings. Like, this can't be fun, right? And then I sit down, and people are actually, like, enjoying each other's company and laughing. I'm like, there is nothing to laugh about here right now. Like, this is nuts. Everybody here is nuts. There's no way people are happy to go to these meetings, because things can't be going that great. And that's just how screwed up my thinking was. But the best thing that came out of that meeting, I sat down and didn't talk. That was probably the best thing that came out of the meeting. And the second thing that happened was there was a fellow named Josh sitting across from me. Josh doesn't know me, doesn't know I'm talking about him to this day. But Josh, I zeroed in on this guy because we were the two youngest people in the meeting, and he had some recovery. I think he was a couple years in. And he went into this, like, art picture. He described the mental insanity that precedes the first drink in his head. it's almost like he drew it up on the wall. And he did such a good, vivid job describing how the anxiety and fear and just anxiousness that came over him before he even drank, and how much relief he got when he knew where his next drink was coming from. Not when he even got the drink, but when he knew, hey, I've got this situation lined up. I know where I'm going. I'm going to the bar after work. I'm going to meet up with a friend. And he did such a good job describing that mental insanity. I walked out of that meeting and I knew that I felt like he thought was probably the best way to describe it. Like, I knew that, like, him and I think the same way. And I'm like, man, I'm in the right place. I just don't know what to do about it. So long story short, I got some older guys surrounded themselves around me. I didn't know that was happening at the time, thank God, because I didn't know what was going on. And I got a sponsor, Doug, up at Sober Friends, and we started going through the first 164 pages. We got really up to through the third step, and we sat down, and he was telling me, hey, you need to read this, we need to go into this, here's what you need to do. And I just did whatever he said. I was like, hey, you tell me that I'm not going to feel as bad as I do now if we do these things, then tell me what I need to do. And this is in 14. This is in fall, winter 14, leading up to what would be moving here. In between all this, I had a job opportunity to come down here and work at Pinehurst at the golf resort. And I talked through it with my sponsor. At the time, I had not completed the steps. I was roughly 6 months into recovery. And this is just a miracle. The power of God and Alcoholics Anonymous works, because I moved in January of 15 here, away from virtually, all my family for a job. And I only stayed sober because of these meetings and the people in this room. Like, I did not have a solid foundation under me. I was just desperate to stay sober. That's all I had. Desperation was the only thing I had. And I walked into here sometime around late January, I think. And I was fortunate to walk into this room because I had no clue the amount of recovery that was going on here, the amount of activity that was going on here to help the newcomer who walks into the rooms. I had no idea, It was a different dynamic than even what I came out of with my old group. And my old group was great. They were supporting me as much as they could, but they said, when you get down there, you need to get a sponsor, and you need to get a home group, and you need to continue working through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, because you're not fully recovered, and this isn't something you want to. It's the perfect time for you to go off the rails or do whatever you do when you get down there. So I came into here and was fortunate to find good sponsorship. There's a hiccup there. I won't get into that. Yeah. But landed in good hands, ultimately. But I never forget, I sat down with Steve. We're going to go back through the steps. We're going to start from scratch. And we sat down in a little room downstairs. And he read me this line out of the page 77. When we sat down, I'm like, man, this is great. He's going to give me all the keys to AA. He's going to show me how to stay sober. I get to do all these things. And he read the line that says, our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and people about us. And I was like, what is this? No, we're not going to do that. Like, I need help. Like, something is wrong with me. And I need to stay sober. And I didn't realize that was really the mantra of, having the legacy group that we have here, which is, hey, the way you're going to stay sober is you're going to help other people. And you're going to do that as part of your recovery. Like, that's going to be the foundation of what is going to keep you sober when life shows up and when you need reminded of just how crazy things were when you first came in. And I was grateful for that. I didn't know that at the time. I was, reflecting on it, like, I don't know where this is going. But from there, got through the steps, and I've had a lot of amends to make. Family's a tough dynamic. At home, I think there's, specifically with my mom, I did a lot of damage in that relationship, and in fairness to her, she had a husband that drank a lot too, growing up, and then my brother's got his own story that we don't have time for, so she's been put through the ringer with all three of the men in her life, and it's true as the book says, and sometimes, the people around us in our family get sick too. And that's kind of what's happened over the course of our relationship and growing up. But long story short, it's been a blessing to go back. It's been a blessing to be with family. God has given us more and me more than I definitely deserve. Coming into these rooms, especially with Alcoholics Anonymous, we get the chance to be around our parents. We have 2 kids now, and having 2 kids is wild. I did not know anything about parenting, as I still don't. And but when I was drinking, I was so fundamentally selfish that I naturally shied away from situations where I had to be responsible, and that played out in everything, right? So, relationships, don't want to be responsible. At work, I'd act incompetent over certain tasks I was assigned in order for you to leave me alone, so I wouldn't be dependable. Like, I want to sit in my corner. I want you to leave me alone and let me do my thing, because God forbid you find out I'm actually up to the task to do something. You're going to ask me to do something again. So I'm not going to do that. And being so fundamentally selfish, I just never wanted to take on any responsibility. I wanted to sit in my hole and kind of sit in the corner and just shy away from anything that required me to grow up most of my life. But with going back, transition was tough. We loved it here. I loved this home group. Getting back into a group up there, it just wasn't easy, I guess, emotionally getting into it, but finally got settled in. Obviously, COVID kind of threw a nice wrinkle in everything the past 2.5 years, everyone knows. But I'm grateful. We have detox up there. They finally let us back in, which has taken a while. It didn't open up nearly as early as I think y'all opened up down here. And that is, it's a pretty cool experience to go there. It's the same hospital that Bill and Bob worked with Sister Ignatia at the time to really create the first detox center that ever, I guess, was known as a detox center in Akron, Ohio. So there's a lot of cool AA memorabilia up there. But at the end of the day, I am just a product of good sponsorship and people who've given more to me than I could ever give back to them, and God, obviously. I do not have a leg to stand on. Everything that I have is gift, and if I forget that, I will end up right back where I started before I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. That's a sure guarantee, because when I start believing my own thinking, and my wife saw that today, God bless her, she listened to me for 9 hours in the car on the way down, has to listen another hour, which is, just saying. But when I start to believe my own thinking, and I don't have people to hold me accountable, I don't have a program in place, I don't have people that I'm responsible for, I will start thinking that all these blessings that are in my life are just me working for them, which is just a load of BS at the end of the day. But I think that's most of what I have right now. I am super grateful for this group. I'm grateful for the program of recovery and the long-term recovery that's in these rooms. And I am just grateful to be here. And with that, I'll wrap it up. Thank you.